we are responsible for what we put in our mouths, and we are responsible for what we feed our kids because we make the choices of what we're going to buy, what we're going to put on the table, and what we're going to prepare.
Hi, ladies. Welcome to another episode of Girls Gone Gritty. I love it. Bring it on studios. I miss it there. I'm here in Sugarbush Studios. But wow, ladies, what a busy week in the world. How about the inauguration, the national championship? The Buckeyes put a whooping on Notre Dame. And it's been a great week up here watching TV nonstop.
That inauguration was like 3-day long event. I would love to know what the total dollar amount of all of those festivities rang in at.
I really would not. It would probably gross me out. But hey, listen, it's a big deal when we have a new president coming into office, and the pomp and circumstances with the billionaires by his side could not be unmatched. So hooray and good for them. And hopefully they'll continue on with the pomp and circumstance in action. That's what I want.
Do you guys like Melania's hat?
She was hiding. I felt like she was hiding.
Maybe she did something to her eyes or something. I don't know.
She's so elegant, and she's
so
just so statuesque. She's beautiful. Watching it, it's like a piece in history. And I said, Dee Dee, come and watch this. And we were just seeing everything. I mean, I love how they go to church and they have their special Bible. That special Bible.
Very special.
It's great to see history in the making.
It's history.
Oh, Jinx. Oh, me bear. Jinx. And then you have the national championships. I mean, Notre Dame has been trying to get a national title since 1988. Wah, wah.
You do realize that he played for Ohio State.
Yeah.
So it's a double whammy. He's playing against his own alma mater. So it probably felt good. If you're going to lose to somebody, lose to your alma mater. But if you're going to beat somebody, how good would that feel?
Yeah.
Oh, and especially on Inauguration Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? He was actually, I thought he was awesome too, because he really gave it to the players, and he worked that whole angle. They were making a big deal about him being the first Black coach to take Notre Dame to the thing. And he was like, I don't want to make it about that. Let's make it about like what happens on the field.
Oh, he's a class act.
He's a class act. And listen, if you're going to lose with grace. And I thought he really did a great job of keeping it about what happens on the field. And that's what you want. That's what you want.
You know what else? I like the two quarterbacks basically saying, hey, we're the two most religious teams in the conference. And it makes perfect sense that we both ended up here. And when Ohio State won, they all had their Jesus won shirts on. And I just think it's a really nice thing that these guys are all such comrades on the field, and off the field, their belief system is the same. And I feel like they're all being rewarded for it. It's pretty amazing.
And they're sending a positive message to all the like future athletes and future NFL, hopefully national champions. So Farley, take us to the top 5 grittiest headlines of the week.
This was hard. We had a lot of material, but I'm going to go ahead and give you number 5. Pardon me. From executive pardons, Biden totaling more than 8,064, and Donald Trump is already at 1,740. Do modern day presidents abuse this executive power? I mean, where do you draw the line? GW only did 200. Obama had 1,927. I don't know. Family members, rioters, where does it stop? It should be a get out of jail free card, and it should be mandated like X number.
I think it's gotten out of control, and the pardons that are happening for things that have, let's take people that have been convicted of a crime that has nothing to do
with
Biden's
son,
like Biden's son, like the rioters on January 6th. There are things that they should not, the absolute power should not be anything.
Correct.
And the other thing that shouldn't happen is I shouldn't be able to have executive power on something that you've yet to commit. How the heck am I saying you're absolved from any issue from this moment in perpetuity? Like, what?
To me, it's
because they know they're
an admission of guilt.
They're so guilty. Look at Fauci. I mean, honestly, come on. And
Biden was literally pardoning people while the speeches were happening.
He is literally the fact he pardoned Fauci, and Fauci has pushed this vaccine. And then all the research, of course, comes out, which I've been following for 5 years, that, all these medical problems happen. Of course he's guilty. So, let's pardon him because we know what we did was wrong. And it's just all of it. None of it is honest. And politics have to just rewrite these policies that are just so unfair and they're so one-sided.
And that's it. And you know what? And criteria, a set of criteria that you have to reach before you can actually pardon the person. And if they're genuinely like a criminal, like Jen pointed out, whatever it may be that is truly an act of being a criminal, you can't be pardoned. I'm sorry.
We have checks and balances in this country, and it's called the three branches of our government.
Yeah.
And at any point, if one position, meaning the presidency, gets to a point where they have absolute power, we're in trouble. So I think we got to keep a watchful eye on how they use executive issues, on how we use pardons, like all of it. And it's across party lines. It's not Republicans. It's not Democrats. It's been a abuse of power that's just getting worse and worse. So what else do we got this week, Far?
Well, that being said, number 4, global freeze. This extreme weather means 70 degrees temperature in Louisiana versus snow in Florida and Texas. I mean, what the hell is going on in raging wildfires and 100-mile-an-hour winds and the Santa Ana crises?
Get used to extreme weather. Whew, that's where we are.
I just came back from Florida, and I can tell you it was gold. And I wasn't in Jacksonville or the Panhandle where it was snowing. I was in Sarasota, Florida, and it was darn chilly.
That's when I look at, I was on Insta, and my friends are basically getting towed behind their friend's car in Florida on the streets. And you just see kind of sparks going. And I'm like, oh, you guys are snowboarding, kind of? And all these places, you're just getting towed and sketching. And it kind of makes you go, what is going on? Because here it was minus
Charleston got
20
14 inches.
Yeah, minus 20 wind chill here in Vermont. And then 2 days later, it's 20, 30 degrees. You're like,
That's why cooties are flaring up. I mean, people are sick.
The swings in temperature have been crazy. And it's funny because they don't know how to handle it, from not having the equipment to not even understanding it. One of Shane's roommates went out one day and thought, oh my God, it snowed. And he had never seen frost in Gainesville, Florida. So he thought frost was snow. These anomalies that you can't
Texas has been getting hammered year after year, though, I'll tell you. And then they break, then their pipes freeze. And SMU, each year they've had days off because they've had to put the school back together again.
Yeah.
And I went to a lacrosse tournament there, and I've never been colder in my entire life than standing on the sidelines in Dallas. I had to go buy a parka that is my favorite go-to parka living in the Great North. And it's like a sleeping bag that I walk around with. So crazy. It's nuts.
Well, the ponds were finally frozen over. So people are playing pond hockey. They're ice skating and they're sledding. So this is the weather that we grew up with. It brought winter to areas in the Northeast that we need.
And it's snow right out the door here.
Yeah.
Like good old Jersey has been dumped on a couple times, which is nice.
Yeah. Hadn't had that for like 4 years. So
takes me to number 3. There's no place like homes. And I'm not talking about ruby red slippers. Kansas City hosts and hopes to continue their statistically rigged AFC championship. Mahomes' preferential treatment in 11 games, and Kansas City's opponents get more penalties and penalty yards.
You can't have penalties that are kind of on the fence that all of a sudden the refs are taking over and taking sides. And I've seen it before, and you're going to win for the third time. And it's like, hey, come on. Are you winning honestly, or are you making plays that someone's actually cheating?
Well,
not cheating.
I also, exactly. I couldn't agree with you, D, more. And I also think that I don't know that I fundamentally believe that all these wins for any of these teams actually doesn't have a little bit of predetermined outcome, because they want Kansas City. They want Kansas City in the playoffs for a lot of reasons. There's somebody sitting in the sidelines always that has somebody else sitting next to her that they don't want to lose viewerships because they don't want to lose the money.
Well, it's viewerships. Yeah.
1000%. And Kansas City right now is the golden child.
They have the hometown field advantage too. It's always hard to show up and go play on somebody else's turf with somebody else's refs.
So I can honestly say, go Bills. Woo-woo.
Give it up for number 2. Does it end with us? I mean, what the hell is going on with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni? I don't know who's right. I don't know who's wrong. All I know is it's going on and on and on. I think every time anybody has press, it's considered good press, but I think this is bad press for both of them.
Enough is enough is enough. The he said, she said going round and round. I mean, They seem like they're pretty comfortable and intimate with each other. And the things that I see, they're getting attorneys involved, hiring the stakes every time. I mean, it's
hundreds
like
of millions of dollars.
You guys should take it to mitigate, like litigation, mitigation, whatever you need to do, and go figure it out, because I don't want to weigh in anymore. Who cares?
Well, we don't care, and it's damaging
even know.
both of it's damaging both of their careers. And you know what you have to say is, hey, that's Hollywood. Good press, bad press, it's press, and we're talking about it. So,
what
are you going to do?
Very telling is here you've got Blake and Ryan, two of like the biggest stars in Hollywood, and she comes out with a 180-page, legal whatever, and I was like, whoa, this guy's going down, and he did not blink. He came right back at her and slammed, the New York Times or the New York Post with libel, and he's going just as big. So the truth lies somewhere within, and it makes me think that they're both kind of guilty and both maybe major egomaniacs.
But I don't think we'll ever know.
It's true. NDAs and lots of money will be settled, I have a feeling,
But I can be honest to say that I don't know anything about the movie.
Everybody said that they actually had
about the movie.
People said that they have really good chemistry in it and that they're actually kind of surprised. But, that's the other thing is everybody that's involved in this movie, it's not doing great things for the movie. People aren't running out to see it necessarily because it's getting rave reviews. It's getting, shitty reviews. And maybe natural curiosity, you drive by a car accident and you've got a rubbernecker.
I just rubbernecking in the name of the movie with like the perpetuity of this story continuing on with them pointing fingers at one another is just so classic. I can't even take it.
And our final grand finale numero uno is the solution is simple but radical. Fix food, then we can fix our health and fix the planet simultaneously. So shifting to a diet of whole, real, and regeneratively grown foods could transform not only public health, but heal the environment. It's got to start somewhere, people.
Wow.
And,
you are what you eat. Something that we were taught when we were young. You are what you eat. And right now, Doritos.
If it's being grown correctly, then the environment is going to heal. I mean,
strawberries that are size of apples. Those aren't really good for you. Just saying. Clean it up.
I couldn't agree more. However, I feel like going backwards on our industrial farming is going to be the problem because nobody grows anything in their backyard anymore for the most part. And if you do, it's seasonal. Like here in New Jersey, you don't have the opportunity to grow everything. So I would love to see that. They talk about, going without meat is a huge way to heal the environment. I have a really hard time being vegan. I've tried it. I've tried to be, lacto ovo with just eating fish and eggs and things like that. It's not an easy thing. And you don't ever know where your thing's sourced for. But yes, I'll pray that we'll figure this out because we love to talk about food.
There are real carnivores in our family. I just don't think that really could happen. I think like your body craves what it needs. And I'm not talking about sugar. I'm talking about like when my body is really craving like a protein or some type of a salad or a nut, I try to give my body what it wants. And I have to say no to the big sugar thing. But we've got an unbelievable episode today all about food and choices. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of a steak sandwich for my steak sandwich. Let's do it.
Well, Dee, I read something really cool about how, once again, vitamin D milk is what everybody should be drinking, and red meat does not hurt your heart. It actually helps your heart.
Right.
So
and red
wine.
wine.
Why do we believe all this bullshit?
Well, here's the thing, though. I do think like fashion, food industry is trendy, and they're gonna circle things back. And even insofar, I was watching something about like the almond industry and the fact that the almond industry is boomed because almonds are healthy and now they're making milk and all the flours and everything out of it. But it's actually terrible for the environment. And the amount of water it requires is terrible. And it's in this teeny tiny little pocket of California and a little bit of Mexico. And you have these hyper localized places where we grow everything. The product comes out of this teeny tiny little corner of wherever it is in the world. And then we wonder why we have issues because they're hypersensitive and hyper isolated is my point. So anyway.
Hot dogs and beer like Babe Ruth.
What?
That was Babe Ruth, hot dogs and beer.
hot dogs and beer.
Some of the healthiest people I know smoked butts their whole life, drank beer, ate freaking as much meat as they could possibly eat, and topped it with bacon. That's where you just wonder, is it really the additives and preservatives? Because back when we were growing up and the Clean Plate Club and the sweet cereals, they didn't have all the same poison.
Well,
but you had to eat
They
the
were
same.
still the same colors.
But you always ate vegetables.
Did
Did you see what I posted on our story today, by the way, to tee up this episode? It was, they've been producing Fruit Loops with not the wrong colors for years in the States and shipping them to Canada.
Oh, I
So
know.
they're
I
being
saw that.
made healthy here, and they're shipping them out of the States, and we've got the poison ones.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that the red dye had been taken out of all of perfume cosmetic world 36 years ago. They were using it for lips and, rouge and whatever.
Because that's how long they've known it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just, and like I said, it's like every headline that you get, they'll get everybody excited about the fact that things are changing. But again, when we talk about it in the episode, it's still not done yet. There's an injunction to be filed. There's ways out of stuff. So you got to be paying attention as the consumer. And that's part of the problem.
But it's time to take control of our own health and well-being. Question is, are our favorite foods safe from harmful additives? Are we poisoning ourselves, our kids, with artificial dyes that food manufacturers, they don't even use them overseas, but are they poisoning us? I think they are. And that's our topic today for Girls Gone Gritty. Is the FDA being our friend or foe?
It's a really loaded question. Where to start? Artificial additives in this country is actually insane. And if you start to scratch the surface as to what is allowed, the FDA has no policing power on what goes into food additives based on like a 1958 law, where before they really even understood chemical reactions and bacteria. So the FDA is really at the mercy of a lot of these big businesses and industries that decide what goes in the products. And they're not even sure what some of these products and chemicals are, which is equally as horrifying.
I don't understand why Skittles, for example, have been outlawed in every other country except for ours. So is the FDA doing a great job here? I heard Fruit Loops are the most toxic cereal that there is, yet we've all grown up with it. And if I could spend the night at a friend's house because they had Fruit Loops, I did, because then I could have sweet cereal. So it's scary, because if the FDA is in bed with big business and the political side of things, then they might be doing what is good for them and not good for us.
There's toxic, carcinogenic, cancer-causing material. Take Gatorade, for instance. You know what's in a Gatorade? So they're giving us
and sugar and sugar and sugar,
oil
and dyes.
Right. And the dyes. The Gatorade, they use red dye number 40 in the US, which hopefully, because RFK, that's eventually going to be banned. So they use dye number 40 for our Gatorades. In Germany, they use carrots and sweet potatoes. There's 100 ingredients in any American food. Where you go to the European section, the short section, it's tiny, because that they can get away with it here. It's not fair.
But it's not the FDA. Unfortunately, it's the self-policing nature of business, and the way that they have it is like they can prove science, and they proved the data on fact that we're just talking about getting these dyes out of the American diet is a disgusting travesty of justice, because even the current things that RFK is trying to do are going to take at least 2 years. And there's a little caveat that it's 3. So the power in which they have to move things is also crazy. And I love the fact that they make headlines saying that this is changed, and it's not changed. And what they wait for is for the American public to forget. And then they file a little bit of a lawsuit, or they file an injunction, or they file something that inhibits their ability to do business. And guess what? It just goes away. And unless you're really hyper, like paying attention to so many things that are happening in our food, you're asleep at the wheel. And it's terrible. It's terrible. The additives are disgusting, but then the standards on which the FDA tries to regulate food, and they're out of they don't even have enough people to do what they're intent to do. is atrocious to me. It's atrocious.
I am confused just by headlines. Let's just talk about headlines. Like when we were growing up, it was okay, you want to be a member of the Clean Plate Club. So, we ate everything on our plates and now we're a supersize it society and we're obese. Okay. We follow the rules of the Surgeon General and the FDA. Why are they promoting nut oils? And now suddenly nut oils are terrible for you. Or why would they promote like oat milk and almond milk? And now those types of milks are not, fortified with enough protein, or they have sugars and artificial flavoring. I just don't know who to believe, because one minute the FDA is behind it and there's scientific evidence that shows all these benefits. Where is that knowledge and all these factoids coming from that are so correct at the moment? And now we've all been ingesting it. We've all been putting Splenda in our bodies and every different type of fake sweetener and fat-free and sugar-free. I mean,
have you heard of
the FDA
have you heard of
approved
the have you heard of the milk Fairlight? So Fairlight is this milk that a friend of mine, she said, you have to get it. It's loaded with extra protein. And we know women of our age, we need to have extra protein. So I'm using it and I'm putting it in smoothies. She's like, I felt strong. I felt so good. And I'm drinking it. And I'm like, God, I feel great. Well, then I run into a friend of mine who is up in Vermont. And I was like, yeah, well, this is a smoothie and I use it. She goes, oh my God, it has so many chemicals in it. Put that completely out of your refrigerator, off your plate, out of your mind. It got approved.
That's not what the FDA does. That's not what the FDA
No,
does.
And that's the problem. You use plain old whole milk. Kids don't drink milk. They drink water. Water is not the water that it was when we grew up. Kids need real milk. They're breaking bones. Their bones aren't strong. And even my husband, he's like, oh, you can't use whole milk. I'm like, Jeff, whole milk, pure whole milk from a cow is better than some pasteurized fake milk with great marketing.
The only animal that continues to drink
another
mother's
mammal's
milk,
another mammal's milk,
another mammal's milk, like after a certain time. So I feel like I loved vitamin D milk, whole milk. I would come home and I would be so excited after going to practice, and I'd want to chug a big giant glass of whole milk. And my mom used to say, you can't drink so much milk because then you don't eat your dinner. And then all of a sudden it was tainted as bad for us. And so we went to fat-free milk or 2% milk, when really whole milk, RFK is bringing back, is the only milk that we should be drinking. I'm confused.
Well, and listen, if you start to scratch the surface on how those things happen, it all boils down to the way our political system is working, and it's the lobbyist. And that these industries, these food industries, are able to sway the court of public opinion on what is going to be on the food pyramid. We've talked about this before on the episode, and they decide what levels of things are acceptable. And it's not okay. And the self-regulation of these industries to do the right thing is what a lot of these policies are on the backs of. And that's not in the betterment of health for each individual. That's for the bottom line of the corporation. And until you get a policing body that is actually separate, and they don't take what a lot of times the FDA does, is they take what the company says the data is on whatever product they're providing. So we know data can be skewed, and I can look at something and I can say, well, only 7% of people were affected by something. Well, if 7% is a million people, that's a lot of people affected. Like, what's the number we're talking about? And I feel that what ends up happening is that you've got the FDA that's supposed to police a self-regulating industry that we know food is being industrialized, and they're trying to make more of it without the thought of what nutritional values are.
There was a conversation that was relayed to me recently about a very, very high up attorney for a company that's taking over the world. Okay, I'm not going to name it, but it's a conglomerate on top of a conglomerate, and it is global. And, she basically works for whoever is in the White House. And she was saying that changes are happening immediately, and that something as simple like a Breyer's strawberry ice cream is going to go back to just milk, sugar, and strawberries. Okay. So this person said to her, why did everything change? Why so many additives and preservatives and whatnot? And she said that there's all kinds of different taste panels, and that they have the public taste as consumers and vote on what they like the best. And the American consumer likes the product that is filled with the additives and preservatives and the sugar that gets you addicted, etc. And that's why they started rolling out and shelf life, blah, blah, blah.
Well, shelf life. Same... You go to Europe, and when you go there to ski or hike. You get you get the baguettes, you get the cheese, you get the meat, you get the chocolates, you drink beautiful wines. You'll eat it around the clock for a 2-week vacation. You don't gain an ounce because it's so pure. Every ingredient on the shelves are like every product. Their ingredients you can actually probably comprehend.
And they spoil
with a quarter of them.
Let's be real.
And they spoil faster. Right. But the problem is with Americans, they want this fast food. They want the quick hit. Now, there's a woman called Van Harris. It's a website called The Food Babe. I follow it all the time. And for anyone who is ever on Instagram, as we all know, follow her. She is amazing. She's a one-woman consumer protection agency.
She's an influencer.
And she has making advances. She has gone against everyone. She is fighting so hard. So she went to Chick-fil-A, which she calls them chemical fillets. There's 100 ingredients in one chicken sandwich in the US, and there's 55 in Europe. So she went to them and she's like, hey, you need to take out some of these chemicals. And they are actually listening to her. The iconic favorite American meal, Kraft mac and cheese, when she went to them, they are saying in Europe, they put a warning label on any food that has any really bad ingredients. But Kraft mac and cheese listened to her and is starting to change her recipe. Now, to gross you out the most, so Subway bread. So Subway bread is made with a rubber that they use in yoga mats. The ingredient, when you heat the bread, it basically turns into a carcinogenic called azodicarbonamide. And that is in her bread. So if you turned a yoga mat on the side and you kind of looked at the rubber, that's what turns into the Subway bread. So right now it's time to wake up because
talking about Subway, the chain, not bread that you can buy down in the New York subways that we've been slamming.
Exactly. But she went against the CEO of Kellogg's. And finally, after 400,000 petitions that she put on their front door, she said enough. Like, she has been banning Kellogg's for months. I follow her because I read her stuff and I'm like, it's horrifying.
What can we eat? What can we, like, that's the scary thing. Every time I turn around, first of all, we know that cancer is like completely on the rise and it's affecting younger people sooner. So it's what we're putting in our body.
Well, let's talk about that.
Being grown,
the red dye that has been in our food system for 40 years. They knew it caused cancer tumors in rats.
And I liked red everything. I wanted red lifesavers. I liked a red Swedish fish. I opted for red
Swedish
as often
fish
as possible. I liked red Kool-Aid because I wanted a red mustache. Red was my favorite color.
Yeah.
Scary.
But it's my mom for years. She's like, do not drink Gatorade. Do not eat Cheetos. Do not eat Doritos. Now go to Food Babe Instagram and maybe we should try to get her on our show because she is so knowledgeable about all the ingredients that are on our products compared to Europe. Now the Dorito list and the Cheeto list on the American side.
Addictive ingredients that make us crave it and our brain is thinking about it. And it actually brings nostalgia in weird ways so that you are craving something that makes you feel happy, makes you like, that's part of the additives and preservative evoke emotion when you bite into something and see the Cheeto on your finger or whatever you associate it with growing up. And it was the lunch that your mom packed for you or whatever makes you feel happy. It's comfort eating when you're sad. It's all these things that they have tricked our brains with these ingredients
and our gut. And we talked about that with the event that we were at with Dr. Nadeau, who's a Harvard trained doctor and a psychologist, and talking about the gut importance of what you put in your gut and then how that affects your mental health. So that's the other piece of this. That's crazy. When you put crap in your body, we know that as an athlete, you don't perform well, but you also don't think properly. And I think what's crazy is that it's not just the additives that we've put in our things that you can't read the label. And it's the way that the labels are structured that you can't even understand. The modern consumer can't even understand the label for a lot of things. And they confuse you on portion sizes, and they confuse you on what's actually in things with the front of the label, being, is it like it's
organic,
a food product? Like some of the cheeses that you buy, it's not cheese. It's a processed food product. And you have to be really careful as to the way that you're being marketed and to what you're consuming, because people think that they're buying actual cheese, for example,
frozen dairy.
Velveeta? How good's Velveeta though?
Frozen dairy dessert is a lot of the ice cream. I didn't even realize that. I'd come home with ice cream, and one of my kids at one point said, "Mom, you're not buying real ice cream. It says frozen dairy dessert. Don't go for the frozen dairy dessert. Make sure it says ice cream." And I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't even see that." And it's right on the front of like a Breyer's box. I mean, it's nuts.
Because they're sneaky and they know how to kind of put things a little under the radar and like sprinkle things in and figure out a way to get less of the good stuff in that costs them money and more of the crappy stuff that addicts you to it. And again, back to the original, thing with the FDA. I feel terribly that we don't have the teeth in this current country. And I don't blame any administration, because it's been going on through the decades. Like, this is not a new problem. This is not something that you can pin the tail on either party. This is an inherent breakdown, in my opinion, of the politicians of every ilk being in bed with big business. And when we don't have somebody
supporting campaigns,
correct,
and making
why do you
affordable.
think they're correct? Do you think that's the reason why
we're not going to go against the grain?
But the great thing
they know poisoning us. They know that they're poisoning our kids. Why do you think that they are getting away with it? That's my question.
There's nobody that they have to be held accountable to. And the companies have the benefit of, they don't have a 4-year plan. They don't have to worry about the current administration. They don't have to worry about the next administration. Most of these large corporate organizations, they're looking at strategic goals that are decades. They don't care. Look at big tobacco. It taught us a lot about how the industry, when wanting to self-regulate, they will not.
They're taking advantage of the fact that we're also becoming a lazier generation. We're not cooking our food. We're not sourcing our food. We're not growing it out in our pasture and bringing it farm to table. And it's happening less and less. Like, we've talked about this many times, sitting down and breaking bread with your family member. Like, to me, when I cook, I put love into the food. Because
yes, you do.
I'm making it for somebody that I know is going to appreciate it. And I like to cook because I like to make my people that are eating my food happy, and love goes into that process. And now we go to these grocery stores around that have so much food that is already prepared. And I feel like people just will go buy whatever they can to make their life easier. And maybe people are working longer hours and more people are out of the household with a full-time job. But the breakdown begins. We are responsible for what we put in our mouths, and we are responsible for what we feed our kids, because we make the choices of what we're going to buy, what we're going to put on the table, and what we're going to prepare.
I think people are lazy eaters. And the problem is, go to a fast food store, you get McDonald's, you get a big meal for $4 or $5.
Not anymore. It's like $9. Like,
right, but
to go to McDonald's.
But it's lazy. Kids are in sports all the time. It feels like there's not that quality time of coming home and sitting at the table, setting a table, and eating a home cooked meal and talking about your day. You come in late, you have kids coming, you have them going. They have practice from 7 to 10 at night when they're in high school. So you never have that quality meal together. The moms are driving around, the dads are driving around. Nobody has time to cook anymore. And people have to start making time to take care of themselves, to feed their soul. Because if you're not in charge of your own body, which you are, and the thing is, you trust these manufacturing companies to say, hey, you know what? You're selling me this product that you say is organic, but it's filled with pesticides. It's organic from Mexico. Oh, I'm sure they have like a really strong system to make sure there's no carcinogenics on the food. You just have to kind of read the labels and be in charge of your own destiny.
And look at the recalls, okay? That's something that you can do like once a week if you want to. Go and look at recalls. You can't imagine how many products that you consume are suddenly being recalled because of an ingredient that people have found are linked to something, or whoops, a bad batch of E. coli. Or you really have to pay attention.
But see, here's the problem.
Educate yourself.
Here's the problem I have with and I'm not saying don't do that. Of course, the whole foundation of what Girls Gone Gritty is about is I take responsibility for me, my actions, my family. I'm in charge of my own domain. But I feel like that's a master tactic on all these corporations to be like, well, the consumer needs to figure out how to eat more intelligently, and they need to understand they are absolutely trying to put the onus on us when they accept no responsibility for the fact that their practices are deceptive. They are steering you into a role of addiction. They are trying to market to your kids. We can see that from yesteryear, even before we got to where we are today, when they would have the addictive cereals on Saturday morning cartoons strategically.
Oh yeah. And like, a prize.
And a prize. They know exactly what they're doing to feed you crap.
And a jingle that you can still sing to this day.
Oh
well. How about veggie sticks? That right now the kids everywhere. I see it at the schools, at the
those
ski
are banned
camps
in California.
But,
you know
but
that?
the veggie sticks are so bad for you. It has every single food dye for you. Yes, and they're banned in California.
And it says it on the packaging.
Kids, they think that it's healthy because it's a veggie stick or a little mini goldfish. It looks so cute. It's loaded like
for the beta
orange
generation.
dye. So the thing is, what I say, ladies, is that American companies are making a fool out of us as Americans, and we all need to be a voice and look at the ingredients and stand up for your family, for your food, for your soul, and drinks for your soul, so that you could have a long, healthy life. Because we know that when you get sick, you have to go to the doctors and get medicine. But
and I think the government has to take a much stronger stance on what's acceptable. What's acceptable? No, what's acceptable in our food supply?
Oh yeah.
You know, the FDA's policing power is not. It should not be predicated upon me saying I'm doing the right thing as a company. Like that does not work. There's got to be some rules and some standards as to practices that are okay.
There needs to be like a food organization that is global and everybody sits on a panel. And if, 9 countries are against the red dye that's in Skittles and everything else, then everybody just decides to ban or boycott so that they have to get their product back into a place that is healthy for all of us. I mean, that's what I would recommend, is some type of a world global alliance where everybody is on the same page from a food standpoint. And if you're not willing to conform to the standards that are healthy and would be regulated, then you're out.
Well, and how about the fact that we should not?
We could all agree on that.
We should, and I agree, and I completely agree. And I also feel that the other part of the problem is that we're getting to a place where everything's like the big and large, and there's like 7 companies, 7 companies
Nestle,
that
Pepsi,
own
Co.
everything. They own everything.
Yes.
So they are able to set market, set pricing, set standards amongst themselves. And it's collusion. It's basic food collusion. And the other part of the problem is that people have to set more realistic expectations on what real food looks like. An apple doesn't look perfect. It doesn't look like the apple that was given to, it
has a bruise.
It has bumps.
A wormhole.
And guess what? It goes bad, and it should go bad. It shouldn't sit on your shelf forever. If it's organic and it's meant to go in your body, it's meant to degrade. It's meant to spoil. And everybody's got to get to a point where they understand that if it doesn't do these things, then somebody's putting something in it, on it, around it that is not of this earth.
A zucchini should be the size of an alligator's tail.
Yes. So don't panic. It's organic. And I'm going to throw a Hail Mary for RFK to right this ship and bring some health food and some purity to my body. So let's talk about who's the Got Grit winner of the week. Thanks, ladies, for discussing all that. But who's our grit maker?
You can tell
for
we're
the week?
passionate about it.
Yeah, we're a little passionate about what we consume.
And we're gonna get back to this topic because there's so much to dive into. But right now,
or digest, so much to digest. Hopefully, it's not giving you a pit in your stomach. But I'll bump.
So who's our Got Grit winner of the week?
So this Got Grit group of human beings has just really topped the news for the entirety of the month, and we have to give a shout out to all our first responders out in California dealing with from the fire to the police to the EMTs to the people who are actually boots on the ground, some of the newscasters I've been watching, anybody who is responding with a great amount of love and heart in this tragic situation that has gone from the fires themselves, then to the water issues that have become very aware of it, to now landslides and the rebuilding of this community. We really just have to remember to thank those people that are there for us when these disasters happen, and hopefully give us a true light to being better human beings as they show us what really matters in the world. So a shout out to them.
I feel like I would love to tell everybody to watch the movie Only the Brave. And it is about the Granite Mountain Hotshots. And it's a real story about lives that were lost doing exactly what everybody's been doing in California with regards to fires. And I genuinely believe that wildfire, the way that they fight fire with fire, that might be where that simple line, fight fire with fire, came from. I had no idea until I watched this movie how they change directions of fires, how it takes burning to really resolve fires. So I strongly recommend everybody watch that, because I have such profound respect for what these guys do and for the extensive training that they go through. And the hotshots are like Navy SEALs. So there's levels and categories of different firefighter accolades, and get familiar with it because they are our heroes.
And I'm sending giant hugs and hats off to all the first responders who are jumping into the fires, doing selfless acts. And I have friends who are firefighters out there, and I'm hoping they're okay. And that's what we need them. Firemen, police, first responders, ambulatory, everybody, to help keep the world grounded.
It really is.
And on that note, Jen,
well,
pump us up today. What is our pump up song?
We need a song that is inspiring.
So pumped up.
Boom, boom.
This for so many reasons, but I'm just going to read the lyric, and it's going a little deep. So here we go. There's spirits above and behind me, faces gone black, eyes burning bright. May precious blood bind me, Lord, as I stand before your fiery light.
I need to hear that song. That's a
wow.
stumper. That's a stumper. Can you play it?
See if I can. See if it works. And I will say that this, I'll give you another hint, because I did go a little deep.
What genre is that? That seems like it's alt rock.
It is not alt rock.
No.
And I love it's not Christian music.
Wow.
And I'm a Jersey girl. So here we go. It is inspired by our grit makers this week. It is not only other than Bruce Springsteen, and it comes from The Rising. So for those of you that didn't catch this album, it's an album that Bruce wrote right after 9/11, an inspiration to all of the amazing people who showed up in that tremendous time of loss. And obviously the firefighters, my cousin was one of them, who responded to this insurmountable task, very much like, not exactly, of course, terrorist option, but responded in such an amazing way. So if you haven't gone back and listened to Bruce Springsteen,
I would never have guessed
The Rising album.
If I heard it, I could probably know. But
I
Bruce,
know the song,
I went to the show.
The entire album is unbelievable.
Those lyrics.
Didn't we go to the concert at Giant Stadium right after 9/11? He played, and I.
Oh yes,
yeah.
From that day on,
you too, I feel like
was a Bruce fan.
Yep.
He played for 3.5 hours, did not stop, dedicated the entire show to all the families and the tragic 9/11. And from then on, I was like a Bruce fan. I'm not a giant Bruce fan, but I was a Bruce fan. And it was
Jen
from
and
that concert.
Celebrating his birthday at See Here Now, front and center.
Yeah.
And I'm not even a Jersey girl, and I'm not a huge fan, but he's cultivated a fan in me, and I have Jersey pride, and I am proud to say that I do like Bruce Springsteen music, and I think he makes a stand and he sticks to his stands.
Yep.
He's really who he is. And
A little political
for
me.
And well, you know what? He's a poet, and poets get political. Poets have their line of voice. But when you read some of these lyrics that I think truly matter, in places and times like this, listen to them. Make your own opinion.
That's
We love to bring you music that you might have come to and forgotten about, and come back to people like our favorites in Jersey, Bruce Springsteen, who can't appreciate Bruce Springsteen if you're not a number one fan. So thank you so much for awarding us the opportunity to get you to listen to our episode. We appreciate you so much. Tune into our playlist. Like us, share us. We're on YouTube. We're on so many different platforms. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Girls Gone Gritty. Peace out.